Welcome to pop.0 with Brian Chaffin and John Keith.
Today, Thursday, June 9th, 2017, this is a video podcast for the Mac Observer. I'm Brian Chaffin, editor-in-chief for TMO, and in an incredibly foul mood.
Wow. And I'm your humble, sweet, innocent, and virginal co-host.
Who's that?
And that is Walter Hanchuk joining us for his
I'm back
on everything.
And I think I'm the only guy in a good mood today, by the way. The two of you guys have been a little cranky today. Just saying.
Well,
Wait a minute, hold
today
on.
for me, like that, yeah.
That's true.
John was cranky today? That seems highly unlikely. No, wait. What's the
talk about an oxymoron? Cranky.
Yeah, what's the opposite of highly? Oh yeah, totally and completely expected. That's right. It was the other one.
Hey, this is a key roast. This is a key roast. I like this already.
I'm glad I'm having a positive influence on you, Brian, and that you're just slowly coming. You're enjoying the cookies on the dark side.
Uh-huh. Is that how that works?
It's about
right. I don't think. I wonder if someone watching this, is the video going back and forth? I can't quite tell because it's different than when just you and I do it alone.
I don't know. Oh, for me, you mean?
Yeah, I don't see the video switching.
I see you when Brian pops on. I see him. So I'm curious if the
yeah, but we're looking at he's talking about the live.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't see it switching there, Johnny boy.
I wonder what that means.
Google.
It means that people are going to see you the whole time.
They're tuning off as we speak.
Yeah, that's not a good idea. Oh, there. Oh, look at that. I am the master of control. Well, let's see if it's... I manually set the video. Oh, that's stupid. That takes work. I don't want to do work.
Wait, was it like that before?
You're having to pop it open to each one?
Yeah, like you right click on the miniatures and say present to everyone. So here, I'm going to present Walter.
I see myself now, right. Yeah, but wait, when we did the whole headphone thing, I thought it was popping automatically, no?
I don't know. Google. Google. What the hell am I supposed to know about this? There's no setting for it.
Yeah, sausage being made right now.
Exactly, live on
It's highly exciting stuff. Almost as exciting as the Worldwide Developer Conference. Look at that segue. It's almost professional. So you were there, Brian, and I guess we should yeah, who are you? we should give a general, I guess, idea of the topics for today, which are the Worldwide Developer Conference hits, misses, and maybe if we have extra time, we will talk a little bit about Qualcomm and the excellent article that Brian wrote up.
Oh, thank you.
And so with that, Brian, I mean, you were at the show, so maybe you want to dive in and tell us what you thought the hits were for you, and we could agree or not.
Hits would include iMac Pro for me. Hits would include HomePod. Hits would include some of the under-the-hood changes in iOS, as well as macOS, including Metal 2. Hits would also include the wireless keyboard. Yeah, I didn't actually think about this ahead of time, by the way. we did a roundup.
Well, you're kind of giving a litany of almost everything they announced as a hit.
No, that's the funny thing, dude. Apple released or announced, not released, not shipped, 7 new hardware products, and they made 11 software announcements, though not all of those are like standalone products, because 11 includes things like ARKit, Music Kit, and Metal 2 and Files. So those aren't standalone products, but that would still be, I think, 7 different software products and 7 different hardware announcements. Mm-hmm. That like, first of all, matches all of last year,
which kind of says a lot about last year.
Yes. And it also and it brings the grand total for this year up to 17 products. No, it's not true. 16 products.
Okay. Well, what were the What were the hits for you?
You know, it's funny.
I
thought you were asking me, John. I'm sorry.
He was.
You know, it's funny. I always joke, John and I are counter-cyclical on this stuff. After any one of these shows, especially a big one like this one, I'm usually the one running out buying all sorts of stuff, and John's buying nothing. This one, John went out and bought a bunch of stuff. Like that keyboard, I know he's in Nirvana, right? A new keyboard for John is, you know, candy, right, for him. For me,
I don't have a keyboard problem.
No, I know. Your therapist says you'll get over it any day, just like my headphone problem, right? So I was kind of meh after it, to tell you the truth. I was like, a lot of cool stuff. They probably should have spread this out over some greater period of time, but I guess you know, they were.
What the hell? First world problems, Walt. Too much good stuff, man.
Well, there's nothing in there. But then again, afterwards, I'm like, you know what? They sprinkled a little bit of this on for everybody. Like for me, iCloud going to 2 tera was great because I was bumping into the 1. I was bumping into the 1. They notched it up to 2. They didn't even make sort of a big deal about it. Pretty cool, right? The file system for the iPad thing is huge. That is just enormous. That might actually convert it from a glorified TV watching device to pretty close to a laptop. So those were my sort of 2 biggies. But I guess on the negative side for me on the iMac, as cool as it is, that to me tells me if there's any Mac Pro out there coming, it's 2019, the way that's happening. Because the iMac Pro is not happening at the end of this year, which means the Atlantis computer system we're all waiting for is not happening next year, is my sort of guess. Just the way it all sort of got announced. But anyway, that was me. But you know, lots of little things. I mean, there's something for everybody in the show. I'm kind of surprised they packed it all into one.
Wait.
Big thing.
What do you think is not going to be announced?
I don't think you're gonna. Well, the announcement will happen, but I don't think you'll physically have a Mac Pro in your hands in 2018. The iMac Pro is not happening at the end of this year, which means, you know, they're going to make some other announcements about the Mac Pro probably next year. By the time, and maybe hopefully it's 36 core or whatever it's going to be, right? Hopefully something significant beyond what the iMac Pro is. I don't know. I mean, it seemed like when I bought the trash can Mac in 2013, you know, it took a while to actually see one of those things.
Yeah, it took 6 months to see it. But I think we're going to see the Mac Pro in 2018. I mean, Apple hasn't said it would be 2018, but I suspect it'll be 2018.
You think?
I don't think the iMac Pro is a stopgap. I don't think that's the point of the iMac Pro. I think the point of the iMac Pro is to hit that niche of people between, you know, like essentially me, who wants something in between an iMac and a Mac Pro.
Yeah, and do you think it fills that niche? But that's a whole other discussion, probably, because I don't think it does. But whatever.
Yeah, I do think it does.
Okay,
for sure. That's cool. You can be wrong.
Yeah, no, I just, you know, look, I have 3 iMacs at home. I love them all. They're pretty cool. But the fact that, you know, you can't upgrade it, you can't do this, you can't do that. I mean, you know, the finally putting in, you know, a bunch of cores helps, right? Because my trash can even is 4 years long in the tooth.
The iMac Pro as a replacement for the Mac Pro in the product line does not work. But an iMac Pro that can't be upgraded and is just basically a beastly powerful machine that you can't do much with as part of the product line, that works to me.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And John's going to give you his "I told you so," right? Because he called for an iMac Pro quite a while ago, I think. But I'll let him.
Fair enough. To be fair, John has called for all of the things.
Good and bad.
So when some of them come out true, he is in fact usually able to say, "I told you so."
Something about a blind squirrel finding a nut every so often, right?
Yeah, especially when he's throwing buckets of them around there.
He's been uncharacteristically quiet here. That's shocking.
I know.
This is the kind of thing that is only, this kind of banter is really the kind of thing of just hating when someone is right so damn much. And I understand. I understand that you guys have to have that little thing to soothe your own souls of just not being able to live with someone that's just so darn good at everything all the damn time.
It's something like that. I got to add before John tells us how wrong we are. I've got to add the 10.5-inch iPad Pro. It was everything that was expected. There was nothing unusual. There was nothing unexpected about it because it had all leaked. But I think that's super cool. And I also think that Apple Pay Cash is going to end up being a very big deal for Apple. And the business chat is going to be a very big deal for Apple, even if it's not cool and sexy and that you know, those of us out here probably don't care much about it. I think it's going to be a big deal for Apple.
enough. All right, so I'm going to try not to criticize anything he said because we'll do that in the misses.
Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of hard work for me to hold back on that. But all right, so with regard to hits, to me the number one hit of the show was the return of surprises. So I think the show had three things that the rumor industry didn't hit on. One, that there was a regular iMac upgrade. Apple pre-announced that there was going to be a iMac Pro at some point. So the fact that they announced it here, not terribly surprising. It wasn't terribly expected either. Wasn't sure when they were going to do that, but there was obvious rumor of it because Apple, in fact, pre-announced it. But I don't remember anyone talking about iMac updates at all. Everyone was talking about maybe there's a MacBook or a MacBook Pro.
Well,
update.
Apple said there was going to be an iMac update later this year, a couple of months ago.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone. You're correct, but
we weren't. To your point, we weren't necessarily expecting it.
Nobody was talking about it as coming out for the WWDC. Maybe there was someone and I missed it, but in kind of the normal sphere of the blog rumor sphere that I wade through, I didn't see anyone do that. So it was a surprise. There was nothing amazing about the iMac upgrades. They were long needed upgrades, but it was nice to see that. The file system for the iPads is huge. Even though Apple itself leaked that there was a Files app the night before, I'm still going to give them unexpected,
close enough
disclosure. Yeah, close enough that to count as a surprise, and that one was a big one. And then the most important surprise of the whole day, of course, was that they finally gave me my glorious keypad. Finally, on the keyboard, which to me is the greatest sign of commitment to the pro market that Apple could possibly release. Anyway.
Did you get one? Were you holding one up?
Yeah, this is it. This is it.
Yeah, what do you think of it? Is it basically exactly what you expect?
It is. It's so it's exactly like the current Magic keyboard, the wireless one, which just is cut off from here. It's nice and light. It has an on-off switch on the back, just like the Magic keyboard, which is great. It's funny, I've been using the Mateus keyboard, which has a mushier, longer throw, kind of like older MacBooks from say 2010 era, and this has the shorter throw one, but it's not as short as the one on the new MacBook Pro and the new MacBook, but it is a teeny bit shorter of a throw than the standard one. But I had a day one standard Magic keyboard, so maybe they've shortened that up at some point mid-cycle and I haven't noticed it. So it just takes a little while to get used to the super short throw again. But yeah, it's otherwise it's a brainless thing. It's exactly what you would expect. And for me, the reason to update it over the Mateus, which otherwise it's a little bit smaller in footprint. The Mateus is a bit bigger and wider. The Mateus is superior in that the battery lasts a year. This supposedly lasts a month between charges. But the Mateus, for some people, it's better because it has function keys up top that let you switch between devices. So you could pair this to your iPad and iPhone and other things. I don't need that. I don't want that. I really want the extra function keys for macros and whatnot. And so the extra macro keys for me was the big draw. Anyway, that was a surprise, which was no one had called at all. So the fact that there was the return of any surprises to the show at all was to me a good thing, because it's been so long since there were any surprises in the show.
Well, hold on though. Hold on. Apple routinely has surprises for iOS and macOS at WWDC because they're internal. They're internally developed.
Well, yes and no, because for whatever reason, it seems like always a few weeks beforehand, a lot of the key features leak about what's going to be. Not all, but a lot of them leak on the feature side, and you wonder why. Because you're right, they could just keep that all internal. And I'm not just talking about, iOS 11 device visited my site, because knowing that the next version of the operating system exists is not exactly a breakthrough announcement on rumors. But for some reason, a lot of the features like Siri being integrated into the Mac that was known weeks before they announced it at the show, right? Last time around. So a bunch of the features do seem to leak, some don't. So I think you're right, meaning obviously not every feature leaks, but there's still a decent amount of leakage for something that they control. And the last hardware device that I think that was a surprise in any sort was the 2013 Mac Pro, which involved a whole new factory. So it happens, but I don't know. I don't remember. These are the biggest surprises in a show that I can remember, for at least for me in my mind, in a long time. Particularly the hardware one. Here's the interesting thing. You would have thought the keyboard came to me like within 2 days of ordering it. So this was clearly in Chinese factories and stuff, and yet somehow that didn't leak, which is kind of impressive when you think about that.
I wonder if it's possible that they're making this in Austin. Does it have a made in China sticker on it?
Did you toss the box there, John, or what'd you do?
No, I didn't toss the box, but it would be on them.
Because that would certainly explain how it remained secret.
I'd be surprised if that was made in Austin. And
assembled in China.
Yeah, they would have announced that.
Assembled in China.
Yeah, you're right, Walt. They would have announced it.
Because it'd be a nice plus, right, if they started making some more stuff here. But although they have said that, have they said that with the Mac Pro? Well, the iMac's clearly overseas again, right? Have they said that with the Mac Pro? Are they really gearing up?
Nobody knows what the new Mac Pro is going to be. I don't think they've committed that it's going to be domestic versus not.
I don't even think we know whether or not that factory is still in operation in Austin. I think it is. I think it is, but I don't know for sure.
Anyway, so to me, that was the #1 hit of the show. That there was the return of at least some surprise. So, the second big hit of the show was the dearth of products has come to an end, at least a temporary end, in that there was a lot of stuff that came out. And to Walt's point, there was a lot of things for a lot of people. So hopefully it made someone happy, some Mac user happy, or Apple user happy in some way. The HomePod, it's a good device. I mean, at least on paper, we'll see how it actually works. Seems nice. I thought that was obviously a nice new little area, an expansion of what Apple's doing. That's good. The iMac Pro is a nice product. I don't think it's a pro machine, but it's a very nice product. And that was super nice. And the Cash, the Apple Pay Cash person-to-person thing, I thought was a really nice hit of the show. And it's one of those things that people are just going to start using daily and not even think about it, like it almost always should have been there, kind of thing. And I thought those were really nice products. And the big one was which was one of the surprises, the file system finally coming to iOS with files. I think that is a profound thing and a very good thing in making the iPad a much more usable device by people that need to get more real work done on it. So that's pretty cool. So those were the hits for me.
We're still having the problem of the video not switching.
Oh, because you got to remind me to switch it. There you go. But I was talking, so it made sense.
It's all about you.
Exactly. I am it's a pretty baby. All right, so those were the hits. How about Mrs. Brian? What any thoughts on what wasn't so great in the show?
No, everything they announced. I mean, it was the interesting thing to me, John, is that they went 2.5 hours, and it was non-stop announcement. There was no filler. We 2 days on Thursday, the week before, they announced the Playgrounds announcement, which would normally be part of. I think did we talk about that on last week's show? Yeah,
and we had a bet whether or not they'd mention the 70 billion, and I was right. They did mention the 70 billion during the show.
They did. They mentioned it, but they didn't make a big deal about it. But you're right.
I was right.
Fine, you were right.
That's right. Let's watch your face. They did. Are you going to say they didn't announce the 70 billion during the show?
No, I'm not going to say that. Am I?
Because it's correct. And who said it? Me. That's it.
You should record that snippet, John, so that you could just press a button and play that repeatedly.
Listen, if I had to record snippets for all the time I write, there's no keyboard big enough. Yeah, that's right.
So
That
the show ended up being 2.5 hours, and it was nonstop. Some of the stuff was maybe less important, more important, but I don't think there were. I don't think there were any misses per se. The only possible misses would be things that we maybe wanted and didn't get.
Right.
All right. Well, was there anything like that you thought should have been in the show and wasn't?
I thought that the MacBook would be updated. It's overdue.
It was.
The MacBook?
The non-Pro,
Yes.
he means the non-Pro.
Yeah, the non-Pro was updated.
Oh, it was?
Yeah,
No, the MacBook Air was. The MacBook wasn't.
Yes, it was. It's got a new keyboard and everything, man. It's got a new 1.4 gigahertz top-end processor. So it's a very incremental bump, and the biggest thing about the bump was not the 1.4 gigahertz, not the Kaby Lake chipset. It was actually got the upgraded butterfly keyboard that's in your keyboard, Walt, in the MacBook Pro, right? Because the MacBook came out first with the very shallow light touch keyboard that a lot of people didn't like. They upgraded that a good bit in your keyboard, Walt, in the MacBook Pro keyboard, which is still very short throw, but somehow has better. Everyone seems to feel it has better feel. And now they finally upgraded the MacBook to have that keyboard as well. So it has the updated short throw keyboard. So they updated the MacBook as well. They updated the MacBook.
Yeah, I see that now. I honestly, in the blizzard of stuff, and we've been going nonstop at TMO since I missed it. I completely missed that. Yeah. So all right. So I guess I'm at no misses then.
Okay, fair enough. So I'm going to agree with you on another thing I forgot to say that was really good. It was a show without the normal bullshit fluff that takes like 40 minutes of intros and bad jokes and bullshit to get through. It was a long show, but it was packed with a lot of info. I thought the WatchOS thing was a bunch of shit because WatchOS, the updates were a waste of time, and they could have cut that in half. But I'm talking about a difference of maybe 5 minutes that they could have shortened that up as much.
Right, but normally half of the show would have been the WatchOS update, right? Normally, they would have gone on and on and droned about it forever, right?
Right. So I have to give them credit. They made the show really tight, a lot less of that horseshit fluff, and boom, 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 boom to all the different products and intros and demonstrations. And a lot of the demonstrations were really well crafted, which I can't say has been consistent for them in the past. So got to give you credit with that analysis as well, Brian, because I think you're right that the show was really tight, and that was another, I guess, hit of the show, that they didn't do the normal fluff and waste of time crap. Walt, any misses for you?
I think I'm stealing one from you on this that you're probably forgetting to raise, and that is now that the iPad, especially the iPad Pro, has a file system, it'd be nice to put a mouse to that, right? Or some other mechanism to make it, closer to the laptop usable business world, right? And it would seem to me not a quantum leap to give it some Bluetooth functionality, for that matter, just to connect to some wireless thing on the side or whatever, right? But whatever. I don't know how much that's being clamored for out there, but it seems like that's the next logical step on the whole iPad line.
Agree. Anything else on misses?
I am still mystified as to why they seem to be canceling the iPad Mini.
Yeah. I agree. Has that been announced? Is that official that they're canceling it?
They're still selling it before, though, aren't they? They're still selling it, right?
They're still selling it. It's been in the supply chain rumor mill for months now that it was going to be canceled.
So
maybe they'll. Yeah,
I think I would have liked to see one thing, John. This speaks to something that you and I have been talking about. You started talking about, but you and I have discussed it. We discussed it a lot at TMO. The lack of iterative updates. Having MacBook Pro updated after only 10 months is so exciting. I don't. The fact that it was a relatively minor update, it's actually the important thing. Yeah. That's actually the big deal about it. It's the sort of needed update so that if you're going to go buy one, you don't feel like you're buying last year or 2-year or 3-year-old technology. And so that was very, very cool to me. I wish MacBook Air had gotten a more of an update. We've got a consistent rumor coming out of the supply chain that MacBook Air is going to be canned entirely. Yet it was updated. So,
No, it's a good point though, because it's funny. Some of the blogs out there, so many people are complaining that they bought, my, MacBook Pro from last year, and they feel like they got robbed, right?
Yeah,
because
fuck
the new one just kept
fuck
exactly.
Fuck those people. Fuck that bullshit. You know what? We used to have that. There used to all the time. Like every time Apple would update something, oh, mine's now obsolete. Fuck that.
Totally. So that people forget from 2006 to like 2011, they were updating stuff so rapid fire, right? It was terrific. And then we got used to this like 3-4 year freaking turnaround. That everybody's like, wow, I'm shocked that they actually came out with an update. Really? This is a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
Well, and it's such a minor update. It's the kind of update performance-wise where it would be the delta of you, if you got like the 2.7 gigahertz model last year, you could have updated to the 2.8. I mean, that's the difference in it. In performance-wise, the only the SSD is a good bit faster. I think it might be up to 50% faster, but it was already a 2 gigabyte per second throughput. It's ridiculous. I mean, don't get me wrong. Maybe if that's all you do all day, that's significant. And the one other difference, other than the 0.1 gigahertz throughput on the processor, was
0.2. I think it's 0.2. 2.9 to 3.1. Right.
So the Kaby Lake now includes an H.265 encoder decoder. So if you do a lot of MPEG 4K work, the 265 is useful for hardware acceleration and a little bit more battery life when you're doing that. So but I mean, those are such small tweaks. Like it'd be the difference between you getting the 2.7 to the 2.9 gigahertz thing during the if you got it last year. So I just I guess people are going to whine and bitch no matter what. So this is par for the course.
Right.
I totally agree with your sentiment on that, Brian, which is fuck those people. I mean, well, you got the top of the line MacBook Pro last year. Do you care? I mean, you feel like
I'm good. I know I'm not changing anything, but I just think it's hysterical because people have such short memories about how it used to be, right? Like who knew, the sweet spot on the old Mac Pro was your 2010, right? You had no idea that thing was getting updated like every 6 months to a year.
Right.
I mean, it ends up that was the 17-inch, the last one was a 2011 quad core, right? That ends up being like, the Jesus, Mac, right? The 17-inch, because they died after that. But who knew?
Apple is going back to a 9 to 12 month release cycle for its Mac product line. That would be the best thing in the world. Right. And we can go back to the days of people bitching because Apple actually updated the thing that they bought. Right. I would happily go back to those days.
Agreed.
Please take me back to those days where that's the problem.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's a very good problem to have.
I just think these blogs are funny, though, because they do all this analysis of, the new machine's 20% faster than this one. And everybody's like, oh, no, well, maybe it's only 8%. And they're, like, splitting this hair. Well, all right. I think they agreed on, like, 6.5%. I'm like, terrific. Have a cookie, right? I'm like, they're going nuts over some speed test. I'm like, all right, whatever. Real world, I'm not sure it makes a whole hell of a lot of difference. I'm glad they're moving. They're pushing the peanut up the hill here finally.
And there you go. From someone that bought the most expensive MacBook Pro possible a year ago and now is outdated and obsolete.
Paid $5,000 for this thing, right? But whatever.
Yeah. All right. So you guys didn't have a lot of misses there. So Walt, I agree with you. Not adding mouse trackpad support to the iPad is a miss. It's something they could flip the switch on super easy. I don't know why they're resisting it. I don't know why they're for a company that supposedly touts diversity so much, they do a great job of talking that talk but not walking that walk, because the diversity of different types of people that need to use an iPad Pro and could use it in more circumstances would be expanded by them adding the mouse and trackpad. If you don't want to use it, it's just like if you don't want to use the keyboard, don't use it, right? Having an additional mechanism to help people be productive is a good thing. It's kind of like all the different input formats that they hold on, let me finish my point. No, let me finish my point. It's like in the accessibility controls that they have on the Mac and on iOS devices. It has lots of additional input mechanisms for people that can make use of them, and there's no reason not to do that. All right, go on your bitch fest.
It is a whole layer of operating system code that's just going to gunk it down.
That's a lie. That's just an outright lie. First of all,
they're lie.
because one, the feature set's already in there, and there have been developers that have enabled it and used it. So the fact that it's going to gunk something down, it's just a pointer and a clicker. And on top of it, people have the dual screen things that people use to have an iPad lets you use a cursor currently on one of those things. And by the way, fuck you, Brian, for being such a bigoted piece of shit against your wonderful guest, who I loved. I never knew what a sweetheart guy he was, Dr. Mac. The guy was telling you during your podcast with you and bigoted Jeff, anti-mouse bigots that you are, that he's like, hey, I find it useful. I currently use it that way. And you're like, fuck you, your opinion doesn't matter. Fuck you.
Yeah, it's very similar
Sweetheart
to
of a
what we
human
said.
being, your opinion doesn't matter. We've decided for you. Fuck you.
Yeah, that's very similar to what we said.
That's totally word for word what you guys said. So now that I've established that, and it proves bullshit that you've forgotten about. There's no added layer of software. It's in there already. It's a question of them enabling it for people to use and exploit. It's that simple. So I'd rather see him
take it out then.
Because you're just bitter that I'm right about yet another thing that you were wrong about. And I understand that. That's very difficult for someone with a gentle ego and princess-like disposition as yourself to deal with. But nonetheless, it is what it is. I think, but the good news about the mouse thing is, and I think it's a question of maybe, there's no maybe about this, about me being too greedy, right? Which is they took a bigger step. Frankly, that is a very simple thing for them to switch on and off. They took the bigger and tougher step of introducing the file system. And, let that progress, let that evolve. They're clearly evolving some things they're pulling from the quote unquote trucks, right? They're pulling they've reproduced the dock much more fully in iOS 11 and pulled that from the Mac. The file system being there, long needed by real pros that do a lot of work on that want to do a lot of work on the iPad. So they've done that. So I'm okay with maybe it takes them another operating system revision before they add in the trackpad mouse support for those that could use it. And I think that totally blows up this device. All of a sudden, this device becomes a very, very broadly applicable, broadly adaptable machine, much more so. And John, frankly, the file system alone does that.
John,
you're
entirely correct.
Wow.
You don't have to placate me with that.
No, I'm sure you're entirely
you got to throw that mic now on the ground there, Brian. You got to drop it.
Now you make me feel bad about all my cheesy jokes like that. This is a fight. You
right.
bastard,
like you feel bad, right?
Shit.
Like
no, that's not. It's you've shown me there are my ways. I was wrong, and
so you are being sarcastic. I'm sorry.
No, I'm being as genuinely honest as I can be. You are correct. Everything you just said is right, and it is going to blow it up. And the thing that made it click for me, John, is you pointing out the drag and drop features that were added for
amazing. I don't
iOS 11.
People are giving credit for that. It's a very good point. The multi gesture drag and drop was fucking phenomenal. That demo was phenomenal.
and the dock. That was what made it click in my head. It's you're right. Once the mouse support is added to that, Apple has its toaster fridge,
and it's fine. Look, I think there's this balance between the tyranny of the average and the masses dictating the diversity of others. And maybe for most devices, that's fine. Maybe for entry-level devices, that's fine. But when you get to the pro level, and we're talking about the iPad Pros, right? And we're talking about the MacBook Pros or other things, you can't let the tyranny of the average dictate the professional's needs for adaptability. And so it's really simple. If you don't like using a mouse or a keyboard on the iPad or even the pencil, you don't have to. It's designed to be robust enough that you don't. But for those that could really use it, particularly the pros, and again, I'm talking about the iPad Pro, there's no reason to not give them that when you could really enhance the way that they use it. Just like there's no reason if you can do a little bit of work and give the accessibility features to enable folks with handicaps and special needs to use the devices as well. I just don't see how that hurts anybody. It only just broadens the diversity of people and uses.
Switch the video off me.
Oh, I'd like to see your expression on as I'm right about things. Anyway.
Did you gentlemen watch or listen to Gruber's talk show live?
I didn't see it. I heard your account of it, and I'm generally a very anti-Gruber after his last bullshit thing that he put out, and he's become so much of a sycophant to Apple as of late that I've kind of been on an anti-Gruber bender. But anyway, why don't you tell us a little bit about it, since I think you were there.
I was there. The thing in particular that I was going to mention in light of this is the tidbit that Craig Federighi gave us, that in iOS 10.3.1 and 10.3.2, Apple was taking our devices, upgrading to Apple file system, checking it, making sure it was okay, and then taking it back so that they could look at the data.
That's crazy fucked up. You know what? I remember I listened to that, and here's my question, and I don't know if anyone asked them, because don't get me wrong, no matter what they did was impressive, but this is what I suspect was the truth versus what they're leading you to believe. They could have tested this in a number of ways, right? One way is they literally replaced the file system for the entire storage device. They entire hard drive, SSD, whatever the storage thing is. So if you had a 32 gigabyte device, they repartitioned the entire 32 gigabyte. What I suspect happened is they resized the partition, say it was 32 gigs down to 25 gigs, made an Apple file system, whatever boot, thingy on there, moved a bunch of stuff, saw how that worked, and then brought it back. But I don't know. Do you know like the details of how they did it?
No, they didn't. They didn't specify that.
And I mean, one is a lot more impressive than the other.
Well, but they're both impressive. You said that to start off. They're both impressive, and the fact that Apple did. Well, John, you probably know. John, and actually both you and Walt might know a lot more about this than me. Craig was saying that most file system rollouts are something on the order of 10 years.
For what, like for a business?
Development and deployment.
Oh, development and deployment.
Historically,
certainly wasn't that way at Next, but I don't. I'm trying to think back. Let's look at NTFS. I guess if they're looking at NTFS, they're completely correct, right? That took at least 10 years from when it was kind of in the earlier stages to till they went full head on. And as long as that took, they never had the brass balls to say, underneath your file system, we're just going to lift this house up and put in a new foundation and then just set it back down and everything's going to work. They never pulled that off. It involved a migration. It never involved a under the surface kind of rug pull like that. So I don't know anyone that's done that. Do you know any? I can't remember.
No, I've never. No, it's I mean the system, well, the migration to HFS Plus was similar. Apple lifted you up and set you back down.
HFS Plus was in '85, and it was on a floppy. So I don't remember.
What are we doing now? That was HFS, right? HFS Plus was the one.
Oh yeah, you're right. HFS Plus was sometime in OS X land, but it wasn't. I don't know that it was a new file system as much as. Oh, maybe you're right. You might be right. You know what? I should remember it, but I don't remember it, and that's actually a compliment to Apple that I really don't remember what happened. My memory was that HFS Plus wasn't more about the actual physical file system and the way directories and metadata worked for it, as much as it was that there was basically a daemon running that did the write outs, right? So that if the machine died, there was never a non-written out sector for it. So meaning the underlying physical data structures of the file system weren't changed, but the daemons on top of it to do write outs and stuff were changed. And I guess it's fair to say that's part of the file system too, because it's doing a lot of data integrity and insurance, and maybe all modern day operating systems, file systems have daemons and stuff like that to make sure that you don't have bad data written out, that even if you have a power outage and the duplicates and stuff, it's all, now that I think about it, yeah, it's probably all mostly daemon stuff, right? It's not like physical data structuring thing.
Sure.
But and so maybe I'm thinking of it in the far more old school sense of it, Brian, where I'm thinking of, no, it's an actual different file system. The data structures written on the physical surface are now different. And so HFS Plus to me wasn't so much that as it was additional daemons that gave additional features to the existing structure to HFS. I think the last time the physical data structure of the Mac file system changed was in '85 from 8 to HFS, really.
That may be. That may be. One way or another, it seems like Apple's development on this, with somewhat, I think, 2.5 years or less, is remarkable. The fact that
and stealthy. I mean, the stealthy part was pretty.
Yeah,
great.
can you imagine if like one of those test migrations where they did our shit and then put it back, if one of those had gone wrong to, like a billion devices?
Yeah, it's a bad day on the stock market too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The balls on that company for doing that. I mean, let alone the fact that once they actually went to Apple file system and it was a 0.3 release when they did that. That was, I mean, I don't know. I think that Apple right now is not getting anywhere near enough credit for being super brainiac an engineering company. I think they're doing some remarkable
with regard to
things.
the file system, you mean? I agree with the file system.
File system, this AI chip that they're going to develop, the 10x fusion chip.
Well,
what they're
that's
doing
not correct with regard to you and me, at least. We've been, I think, even on this show, we've been saying the one part of the company that isn't just hitting on all cylinders, they're knocking the cover off the ball, out of the ballpark into a next state, has been the chip side guys from I forget, the AI Semi or whatever it was. Those guys have pushed.
There were two companies that were purchased. Just
I'm sorry, you always correct me and I always forget. Whatever, those two companies, that group at Apple has been knocking it out of the park. Their development puts to shame, I mean, Intel at such high levels. The current the new processor that's going to be in even the current processor that's in the iPad Pro is basically every bit as good as the processor that Apple has in the MacBook. And the development, the speed in which they're putting out these incredible multi-core devices, that I think, what was the iPad Pro now? It's like 6
cores. The new one, it's going to be 6
crazy
cores, and it's got a 12 core GPU.
And dude, that's not even the new one that's going to come out in a few months for the iPhone 8. I mean, they're incredible. So to your point, that AI chip, I have not. You haven't heard any criticism from me, which is rare, on their chip making abilities. but bar none, they've got to be the best in the field. And the only one that's even come close, and I'm so happy that they've started to produce a little bit again, is AMD's latest chips that they put out. Actually put to shame, in my opinion, all of the Intel offerings. In some ways, I was very saddened to hear that Apple's going to be going with the Intel chips for the Mac Pro, and I'm going to guess for the Mac Pro, because I think the latest AMD chips are by far superior to the Intel chips.
I wish Apple would give us a choice there.
Yeah, in that regard, I do understand. Like,
that's probably tough, isn't it? I mean,
you're going to choose your bet and lay in it, and there are valid engineering choices and probably business choices for it. But I do think the fact that AMD has 64 PCI lanes on every version of the chip is humongous. I mean, if you have that, forgetting even a modular Mac, which would benefit from having multiple video cards with wide lanes. 2 video cards could easily take up 32 lanes, right? If you have 2 full blast heavy duty Titan X's or whatever. And the top end chip for Intel only has 44 lanes, and most of the mid-level, and we're talking Xeons, right? Not even their consumer brand. And most of the others have less, like 22 lanes or something pathetic like that. But when you have 64 lanes, what it lets you do is it lets you have, for every Thunderbolt, like for example, the iMac Pro, they said could drive 2 5K displays. And that's partly because there's only so much bandwidth on that if you still want other devices to be able to use the USB-C connectors and the Thunderbolt connectors. If you had enough lanes, every one of those USB-C ports could drive a 5K display, plus other things. So for the average Joe, they don't care, and I think that's fair for the consumer levels. But I would have preferred to have seen the AMD chips on the Pros. Not to mention, it would have been so good for competition to smack Intel upside its head for being such shitbags and not producing anything for so long and basically stunting the industry. So I'm very, anyway, it's a rat hole. I agree with what you were saying, that on the engineering side for the chip, they're awesome.
I also
top of the industry.
think that the engineering in the iPad Pro, especially the 10.5 inch, is Apple should be having praise heaped on it for the engineering side of that, and the same is true for everything they're doing on the Apple Watch. We didn't get a new Apple Watch this WWDC, but what they've already done on Apple Watch is astounding.
Yeah, I guess for the device that it is. What in particular did you like about the 10.5 inch?
The new display in particular, I think, is fantastic, and I can't wait to see that thing. What they're doing with the 120 hertz refresh rates is
it's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you would think that was a big deal. Well, I guess no. You know what? I take it back, because you're focusing on the engine nerd part of what they're doing, and that's true. As an engine nerd, you gotta love that they're pushing that kind of stuff. So
we got another part of what's feeding me on that. And maybe this is why it was told to me. So maybe I've been manipulated by Phil Schiller. He was telling a story, or maybe it was Craig Federighi that was telling a story again at the Mac Show, Talk Show Live from Gruber, about how Phil was playing with an iPad at an executive meeting, and Craig was sitting next to him, and it was like on a need to know basis, this product, and apparently Craig wasn't need to know, at least that's what they were saying. And he noticed when Phil was just, scrolling down like some kind of big long page, and like, like completely caught his eye next to him because it was so smooth and glorious looking.
Interesting. I ordered. I was wondering which one to order between the new 10.5 and, well, the also new but not new form factor 12.9. But I ended up getting a 12.9. And just because I was interested in more for the sketchable features. So for me, more surface area.
And there's 512 on that, right? The 10-inch doesn't have.
Yeah, I always get these maxed out ones, and I get the cellular on there, even though I've never used it in my life. But I did get the 512 gig capacity on it. But yeah, it's funny. The 512 for me is probably more meaningful than the 120 hertz. But you never know until you use it. And I do respect the geek, just keep pushing the envelope aspect to it. Yeah, who knows what ends up being the thing that surprises and delights you the most on it. So we'll see when it comes in. I think it's supposed to come in next week. It'll be fun to get around with that. Anyway, we didn't get to my misses, all of them. So the mouse was a missed opportunity. The HomePod, I hate to call it a miss because, on the one hand, it's good they're expanding, but it's kind of missed opportunity, and it goes back to an old gripe, which is I really wish Apple would think more outside of the box of what others have done here. Amazon deserves kudos for kind of popularizing this Alexa kind of speaker thing, and Apple is focusing more on the audio quality, which is nice. But I wish they we're thinking about not just more of the HomeKit and integration, but the home personal cloud and server thing. Synology really has some interesting thing here. It's way too geeky for the average human being, but there's something there that Apple could popularize and make much more simple. And I wish they use this as an entree into it. But maybe, and I think I heard you say this on ACM, you know, it might be a baby step, like, or maybe it was Jeff that said this, and I agree with whoever said it, where you start with the speaker and maybe you move on to other things. If as it gets successful, you expand it. So, but I'd love to see them tackle that, and I wish that there was something on it. But again, it's asking for a lot on an already jam-packed show. But here's my bit. I'm sorry.
You have something to say about that?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
And I'll try to be quick about it. I don't think that HomePod needs that. Apple may or may not need that in its product line, and a fantastic argument can be made in support of the fact that Apple should really get into home.
Maybe they shouldn't have called it HomePod then.
Well, I think the pod though, it's a music reference.
Maybe Hi-Fi Pod, maybe Hi-Fi Pod or something instead of HomePod, because HomePod to me just screams HomeKit stuff, right? But maybe just be me.
Actually, that's actually duh. I hadn't even thought about the fact that it's clearly marrying HomeKit and music. But anyway, I don't think that makes it a miss for HomePod. I think it's sort of a separate argument. Does Apple need to get into the home storage, home cloud market? And yeah, it would be great, because you know, Synology and Drobo are both fantastic platforms with their shortcomings in terms of every man using them.
You know what? I'm going to agree with you and retract that as a miss then. But this I will not retract as a miss. That the updated Touch Bar MacBook Pros still are not Pro machines. They still do not have upgradable storage, and I was disappointed to see that they didn't take advantage of that. And it gets into my next huge miss. The iMac Pro is not a Pro machine. I'm going to pray that this is rumor, but I think I heard you say I think I heard Jeff say on ACM, or maybe it was some other show, that they confirmed that they spoke with Apple and asked, is the memory and or storage upgradable on the iMac Pro? And at least with regard to they said no. Now, it seems weird that the iMac Pro's memory and storage wouldn't be upgradable when we've already opened up the 27-inch iMac, or the regular one, and it is. Maybe it's a pain to get to, which is fine. But the fact that it's upgradable and they would make the Xeon-based versions not seems suspect in the reporting that we've heard. So I'm praying that pulls out. But if they make an iMac Pro with all that power, basically a machine that if you max out, it's going to probably be north of $10,000, and that machine is stuck forever with the storage that it has currently on it, it's a mistake. And Rick Allen is telling us that it's socketed, no door. Well, that's okay if there's no door, Rick. I think the question is, you know, we're talking about pros, so hopefully the pros have a higher ability to get into the machine like you can on the 27-inch iMac that they just released, and get to it if you want to. I think that's a big deal for a pro. There were some comments I got also on this topic, which was a really good insight. I forget, it was one of our readers, and I apologize, Rick, if it was you that made this comment. It was that, you know, a lot of people in the business world, they can't sell to their boss, oh, buy me a totally maxed out iMac, right? They can get the entry level, and then through the year or two later, they can upgrade that machine to get to where they need it to be as they need it. And that's a big deal in the business world for getting machines approved. So, and I agree, Rick, yeah, it is a bitch. We've done it with Walt's iMac where we've opened it up. So I'm not trying to diminish that it's like somehow easily user serviceable, but even that, the delta of it being soldered on versus that is still substantial to it. So I hope that those reports prove to be false.
There's a difference, though. This is an interesting point to me, John, because I agree with you on that when it comes to the MacBook Pro, right? All the arguments you made about the MacBook Pro being disposable simply because the memory can't be upgraded. I agree with you on that, because there's no option that meets that need. But the difference between iMac Pro and Mac Pro and then MacBook Pro is that there will be a proper Mac Pro coming. So I'm okay with iMac Pro not being able to meet that same need, because you can choose an option that will do that for you, but you can't for the MacBook Pro.
So I totally understand your point. I think it's a fair point, but I think it's because you've been a beaten Stockholm syndrome Apple user for so long that you are not holding a standard for a $10,000 machine, $1 machine that has the word Pro in it, and you can't simply if not simply, if you can't in any way upgrade its storage, it's a mistake. It's something that I believe every pundit, every user should push back on. And the more apologies you make for Apple, the more you enable it to make mistakes happened with the trash can Mac Pro. And people should push back on it. Sorry, New York is saying hello.
Yeah, that's lovely, New York. I don't agree with that here, in that the people who will choose iMac Pro are the people who are going to be okay with that. I mean, there's a subset of users who needs to be able to upgrade that memory, and there's a subset of users who needs to be upgrade this or be able to upgrade that, or be able to access this or whatever, and that subset needs its needs met. But there is also a subset of Pro users who really need only what the iMac Pro is going to have, and it's okay to meet their needs too.
But yes, there is that subset, and I would argue there's a broader subset that need what that machine has, generally are okay with what it comes out of the box, but still want the ability to upgrade it 2 years later when they need more storage. And that subset isn't going to be well served. And you're going to say, well, go to the modular Mac, but they don't need all that stuff. So the point is, as soon as you put in a Pro moniker, they have to listen to their own bullshit that they put out in that embarrassing press group meeting they have, which is the Pro market is not this subset. It's a wide umbrella. Embrace the diversity and make the machine minimally adaptable. I'm not even talking about the RAM and shit. All right, I think that's a mistake too. But I'm talking about the most basic thing, which is, if storage technology had reached some plateau where it's just not going to be upgraded in any reasonable way in 10 years or something like that, maybe we would have a different conversation. But 2 years from when this machine comes out, the capacity of an SSD is going to be like 2 orders of magnitude higher than it is then. And it's not reasonable to say that, well, you should have just maxed it out, because the capacity that's going to be available 2 years later is just a much greater capacity.
I posit that the vast majority of Macs are never updated, even the things that can be updated.
That was the total exact argument for the trash can Mac Pro, and it's still true. But it's tyranny of the average. You cannot make the tyranny of the mediocre the burden of professionals.
You can have a product that meets the needs of this overwhelming majority of Pro users.
That is well, again, then you should be totally okay with the trash can Mac, because it met the needs of the overwhelming majority.
Subset that I want their needs met too.
Yeah,
but even the trash can Mac, I mean, let's face it, I bought it with 16, right? And I upgraded to 64 myself 2 years later for a fraction of what Apple was charging me day one, right? If I had bought it with 64 from day one, it would have been like $5,000 more than it was, right? So I only needed 16 or 32 to start. Year or two later, Mac Sales or whoever was selling decent, OEM type RAM, upgraded it for a couple $100, done. Even with that product, which you're always trashing, understandably, you were able to upgrade the RAM and SSD for that matter, right? I bumped into a 4 tera SSD, right, when that was available from another third party. But to your point, John, there's going to be 10 tera SSDs available pretty soon, right? They're already sort of out there, right? And they're going to be whatever, $1,000 or $2,000 in 2 years, probably, right? There's no way to stick that thing in any of this stuff. So I can't see how many. I mean, I guess their business model is to force people to pay the $10,000 now for a machine that's maxed out, in the fear that they may never get anything better in the next 2 years.
Yeah, but the problem with that, Walt, is but the problem with that, Walt, is maybe that even applies for the RAM, because maybe it can't get more addressable RAM, so you could max out. But it's not even theoretically possible to do it with regard to storage, because there's 2 years from now, the storage size is going to be bigger than what it is.
I was harping on the cost issue that you raised from a business vantage point, because I agree. Walking into your boss's office and say, hey, I not only need this iMac Pro, I need an extra $5,000 on top of it to max out at 128 or whatever the hell they're going to charge for 128, right? Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck. It's one thing to ask for $4,000. It's quite another to ask for $12,000, right? For getting your boss to approve that machine.
This is my point, and I understand where Brian's coming from, where he just says there's an alternative, and I'm like, that's great, but why is it there's only one alternative for pros? Why not make the machine more adaptable? And my point is, as soon as you put a pro label on this thing, it should be more adaptable, because pros need more. They just have a wider variety of uses and need more adaptable stuff. And I don't see why you're apologizing for Apple.
And they don't have. I mean, they arguably have a space issue with the. they arguably have a space issue with the MacBook Pro, and that they needed to cram it all into whatever space, and it's hard to upgrade that and whatever. I don't see that argument with an iMac. I mean, I did crack the iMac 24. That was easy. The 27 was less easy, but doable, right? I mean, doable. So there's no argument for oh well, we had to whatever eliminate some user serviceable components within the iMac. BS. Total BS.
Yeah, and by the way, the guy snoozing was also the guy that was vehemently arguing how right he was, and then 2 seconds later admitting how wrong he was. So just to give context to that comment. And anyway, so yeah, I know, whatevers. You know, some people are like that about being wrong. Whatevs. Here's another big miss from the show. I'm glad they updated the iMacs, all of them, basically, or promised to. Are you fucking still kidding me that the maximum storage size on that machine is 3 terabytes? Not only is it pathetic that they haven't updated to, you know, an 8 terabyte drive, which is so common and cheap these days, they're sticking with the world's most error-prone drive, the 3 terabyte. Like, if you look at the statistics of like the life expectancy of everything, it's like 1 tera, 2 tera, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's the worst drive ever produced by the spinning drive industry ever, and that's the one they're sticking with, and still do not give you an option for more. It's fucking embarrassing that they don't give more storage space. The good news is they let you get up to 2 tera on the SSD side, which is great. But for those that need a lot more capacity, it's kind of an it's an absolute embarrassment that that's still not updated. Any comments on that?
Hey, my much maligned trash can even has a 4 tera SSD in it. Just saying. Just trying to breathe a little life back into the trash can.
Right. It was a good choice, Walter. It was just a good choice.
Yeah, in 2013, maybe.
Right. So that was a miss. And this a slight miss. I wish maybe it's just because I just ordered one and spent $1,600 ordering an iPad. But
worth every penny.
The 12.9 inch iMac Pro. I wish they updated the physical geometry like they did for the 10.5 inch iPad Pro to make its bezels thinner and to make the screen even bigger. I suspect that maybe the next iteration they're probably going to do the same thing for the 12.9 inch, assuming they keep that around. But I would have loved for them to have updated both. But it is what it is. It's still I'm hoping a lovely device. That was it for my misses. Any comments on either of those? You guys agree, disagree? Don't care.
Ryan's still sleeping, man. Sorry.
Yeah. I tuned you out a while ago. Blah, blah, blah. Bitch. Complain.
Right. Yeah, I know how that works.
I think I got to put mirrors in front of both of you guys. So you guys could just talk to people that.
Oh, I thought the mirrors just to see if like there's fogging that occurs. Those aren't going to be actually alive on this thing. All right. And let's get to, I guess, the last topic of the day, which is Qualcomm. I really liked Brian's article on this, where he was so snide and just bitch slappy dismissing to all the idiots and pundits that wrote about this Qualcomm chipset thing. So maybe, Brian, you want to give a little overview of your article?
Sure. Short version is this. Qualcomm's got a gigabit download modem for the smartphone market, obviously. And Apple, according to Bloomberg, is not going to be including it. And one reason why they're not going to be including it, this is in the next crop of iPhones that'll be announced presumably in September. And the reason why Apple's not going to be including it is because only Qualcomm is making a chip that does the speed. Intel has one in the works, but isn't going to be ready to announce it. And according to Bloomberg, Apple, this is true. Apple doesn't like to single source components. They always like to have multiple sources, at least two, in part so that they can play one against another for price, and also in case there are any quality issues. We saw that. Remember that wasn't there a problem with the chip a couple of years ago?
I don't remember that, but I mean, it's just it's so laughable. It's a best practice. You should have multiple sources, because if there's a typhoon or something that knocks out a factory or whatever, you should have multiple sources. This is business 101 bullshit that people are making up on this. Yeah,
this has been part of Apple's operation strategy since at least Tim Cook came back, and it is pretty basic. So the reality, though, is, and I don't even know if I made this point properly in the piece, John. I think the reason why Apple's not going to be including this chip is much more about the fact that the technology isn't ready yet. The networks aren't ready yet. It's just not really a thing yet. These 1 gigabit speeds can only be reached in what are essentially perfect laboratory-like conditions that don't exist in the real world. Now, mind you, they should still be faster than than the chips that are out now, but it's not going to be that real gigabit speed thing. And Apple is going to, everyone's going to be, the Apple haters in particular, and a lot of the blogosphere and the echo chamber are going to be saying, "Oh my God, Apple's not doing the gigabit chips. They're doomed. The iPhone sucks," and all that crap. And we've seen it before. No one's really going to care. We saw this with 3G. We saw this with LTE. Apple will end up announcing support for this gigabit download chip probably in 2018, and we'll forget about it. Just like no one has thought about all the Apple is doomed because iPhone doesn't support LTE stories that were bouncing about 3 or 4 years ago.
You're not taking nearly enough credit for what a major bitch slap that is. I so agree with you. It's a bunch of stupid noise because the press, there's a world of tech pundits that can't scream louder than the Trump bullshit politic echo chamber there is to get noise through. So they're going to make noise over any bullshit thing that they can about Apple. So this is par for the course on that. It's a meaningless thing. Obviously, if they're using 2 chipsets and one has extra features, they're not gonna split the iPhone up on that. So it's going to be limited to whatever to try to keep them on an equal parity, regardless of what chipset is used. It couldn't be more prudent. I mean, I can't understand how anyone questions like, oh, it's bad that they use multiple sources for products because if one of them goes bad or something like that.
Well, I don't think anyone's saying that,
It's just
John.
a ludicrous concept.
I think that people are saying more like that they're already saying. One of the things that happened today is that Apple dropped by the close of day. It was 3.8%. It was higher than that earlier in the day. It came back some right before close, and there were a couple stories saying that it tanked because of this story, because Apple isn't going to be supporting this chip. That's retarded. There was a broad tech market sell-off, and if the reason why Apple's stock tanked was because they weren't going to be supporting this chip, all these other companies should have been going up. So it's just ridiculous. And that I think that was the big thing that people were trying to latch onto is that people actually care about this chip, and they just don't, man. I mean, like the echo chamber cares, and haters and fanboys care. No one else cares.
Are you saying that reporting about the stock market and Apple news is somehow disingenuous?
Brian, I was going to warn you not to go down that dark alley.
Are you going to start pitching this idea, this ridiculous idea that there's a secret conspiracy of tens of thousands of people who are all colluding to keep Apple's stock price artificially low? I got to turn the brightness down on my screen. Jesus. So ridiculous.
Wow, that was a simple poke. Wow, that wasn't even like.
Everyone on this panel knows just how to. I actually agree with you. It's funny. Yeah, Apple stock went down, whatever, and I guess Apple took down Google and Twitter and Facebook
and Amazon
just
and
out of and Tesla out of sympathy. It was all that domino effect because Qualcomm's chip wasn't fully being used. It's such a pile of shit.
including
It's
Google, a company that could theoretically vaguely benefit from Apple not having this chip.
No, that's not the way that stock market works. I wish you knew better.
Stop turning down that alley, Brian.
All right.
Please. No, I'm blaming Brian for that because he raised that.
Yeah, you're right. He should have known better.
Don't put raw meat in front of the dog. Jesus.
Anyway, I totally agree with your analysis. And the Qualcomm thing, it's funny to me that Qualcomm bitches about this like it somehow relates to their royalties that they're trying to extract from Apple. Like, they're not using the full capability of our chips, which proves their ill intent. I'm like, so let me get this. I'm like, all right. So if I buy your car and I don't go all the way to 212 miles per hour, which is its max speed, I'm clearly doing it for a reason of not paying you the full price of the car. I mean, it's such a nonsensical, non sequitur kind of mentally handicapped argument in that regard that it doesn't make any sense. It's a bunch of noise and it's being rattled around for everyone's own particular set of politics. And to your point, haters gonna hate, and there's a lot of Apple haters, so it doesn't matter what the topic is. Just say the word Apple and bet is the Fred Flintstone like reaction to that, or just mention Apple and the stock market, and some people have a particular reaction to that. You know how that works. So anyway, I guess that's it. I don't have anything else on the Qualcomm thing. I guess the only other maybe the only other quick issue is the Qualcomm issue is really going to be an interesting patent law issue, which should make everyone go unconscious.
Yeah.
Because there's been a long time question of apportionment, and it's kind of and the underlying idea of what's going on in that dispute with Apple is, look, at the time when Qualcomm came out with these standards patents, the phones were kind of like flip phones, right? And so when you make a deal for the licensing rate for the product, this is when products cost $50 or $100, and they were getting a portion of that as a reasonable royalty. But now, the iPhone does a lot more that has little to do with the flip phone portion, and reasonable people can disagree. How much of that they should, how much of the royalty should Qualcomm still get? Should they get when phones now cost $1,000, $1,200, and do a lot more than the flip phone portion of it? Should they benefit on a royalty rate that high? It's kind of like if someone has a patent for tires for a car, and cars are like the Model T, but then someone makes a mobile home, and in the mobile home there's a hot tub and a TV and all kinds of other stuff, and they still want to get the full royalty rate for all that price. But the fact that there's a hot tub isn't enabled because of the wheel. It's a whole different new avenue of enjoyment for that device, and reasonable people and people have been fighting for this a long time. So eventually, I got a feeling this thing's going to go up to the Supreme Court. So this dispute may be going.
And that always goes well, by the way. That always goes terrifically well.
Yeah, don't get me started on the Supreme Court and what I think about them. Talk about poking me on that. But both parties have fair questions of law on what should that royalty mean, and it's not as cut and dry as people on either side of that equation make. But in this regard, Qualcomm is using this as weird, just nonsensical arguments like, oh, they aren't using the full speed of the chip, and that means they're disingenuous about their royalty rates. I'm like, what the fuck's that got to do with anything? But whatever, doesn't stop people from making arguments. Anyway, it was a good show overall. So I have to say my overall grade for the show was very much a C+, which is a huge upgrade over the grades I've given.
Wow, they still only get a C+ with all that stuff? Wow.
You gave them a C.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
What do you guys give? What do you guys give it? What do you guys give? Well, what do you give the show?
I'm surprised they packed all this into one and didn't spread it out over some period of time. I give them, you know, considering the dentist theory of life here, they've so reduced our expectations, right? We're expecting pain. We're expecting all sorts. Not so bad, right? So I give them at least a B+. At least a B+.
Wow.
I'm giving him an A splooge all over my face, man.
Wow. Look at that.
Wow. Is that more than an A+? I just want to know what an A+ means. Okay. So that's more. It's an A+ plus splooge. So,
yes.
Wow,
That was awesome.
great.
Are you kidding me? We got MacBook Pros after 10
Wait. Hold on a second. So I need to put this in context. I need to have some sense of scale here, Brian.
Yes.
So if this is an A++ splooge,
What was the iPhone launch then?
Exactly. What was the iPhone announcement?
Right. When the Jesus phone was announced, what exactly did you feel that was?
Was that just end your life, jump off the building because nothing gets better than this?
I mean, everything is relative, right? Because
well, right. That's why I'm saying relative to that.
There was one enormous thing from that keynote.
Okay.
iPhone. What else was announced at that iPhone? There were other announcements. What else?
We don't remember, but regardless, I want to hear your relativistic rating.
John, talk a little slower and lighter when you're talking to a Stockholm syndrome person there.
Yeah,
that's right.
A little slower.
That's right. He's happy to have a $10,000 machine that's completely not upgradable. So this is a relative statement if there ever was.
He's been in isolation.
That one, the A+ splooge all over my face too.
So you're saying they're equal. This was equal to the iPhone. This was equal to the iPhone announcement, is what you're saying.
No, that's not the point, man. You're one.
Of course, that's the point.
At the time, I would have given it this.
Okay, you have some hindsight. For fuck's sake, what is the grade now of the iPhone? Even having the hindsight.
Oh, grade now.
He's got to think about this. Oh my God! Wow.
Well, like I said, there was
every week, Walt.
It was amazing, but we had 2.5 hours of just nonstop blistering. Yeah, I'll give him the same score now.
Wow.
So it was equal to the iPhone announcement.
Wow. I confirm my B+ now more than ever.
The keynotes were the same. I'm not saying that any given one thing is the equal of the iPhone. That's ridiculous. I am saying that taken as a whole, you've got two examples of amazing, great keynotes.
I think I understand the subtlety you're going for, and yet I still disagree.
Obviously,
and I'll tell you why.
One of the most important product announcements that Apple ever did. It's one of the most important.
Even as products. A performance versus product, even as a performance as product. Here's the difference. A year from now, I could ask you at random to quote me part of the iPhone keynote as a production, and you will give me quotes as if it was a fucking Meatballs movie, right? Versus a year from now, I'm going to ask you to quote anything from this fucking show. You're going to be like, what the fuck?
Okay,
that's you're lying even under your own standards. So I'm going to give you one more chance, Senator. Were you or were you not?
Don't wait for the translation. Answer the question.
Answer the question.
I'm going to give the iPhone a fuck you, and then I'm going to give this keynote another fuck you.
Oh, now you're making me.
How about a double FU?
I know. Yes. That's fantastic. That's the answer I want. It's proof in the pudding. Just yet another instance.
There was no single product at this event, obviously, that comes even close to the iPhone.
But you were just vaunting it. When you couldn't make the argument on that, you went to as a production, and now you can't make that argument as a production. So
you were asking me about the keynotes, man. You were asking me about
all right.
keynotes.
Well, I'm asking you still about the keynotes, and I still got no answer.
I'm gonna give them the same score. Fuck you.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty. Well, then we know how genuine you are about all your other questions.
John, come on. The Stockholm folks still love their captors. They love.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Don't question the mothership. I understand. All right.
Yeah,
well,
clearly.
On this poke-filled episode, we shall end it. And thank you, guys. It was a fun show. I really enjoyed it. And
thanks for joining us, Walter.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Thanks.
And on that popular topic, we will see you next-ish, week-ish, maybe-ish. Take care, everybody.
Bye.